You're listening to the radio amid a panicked worldwide animal migration. The sky hasn't known silence in months. At first, it was the wind that changed thin and high-pitched, a constant whine like something grieving. Then came the flocks. Not birds, not just birds. Everything that crawled, slithered, stalked, or flew began to move. Ants formed endless rivers down cracked highways. Deer barreled through abandoned storefronts with their eyes wide and unfocused. Rats poured from sewer grates in frantic tides. Birds blackened the sky until it seemed like dusk had arrived at noon. They're still moving. North, mostly. Some east, some just ... away. The world is unraveling, and the animals sensed it first. No one knew exactly what triggered it. Some said a chemical leak deep in the Pacific. Others claimed it was the collapse of a buried methane field in Siberia, or the reversal of something in the atmosphere. Theories spread like spores, but facts, those dried up long ago like the rivers. I'm broadcasting from what used to be the outskirts of Spokane. Now it's just called Zone Grey. The buildings still stand, but their skeletons rebar ribs jutting from concrete torsos. There's no power grid left, just scavenged solar rigs, car batteries hooked to salvaged wires, and hand-cranked radios. My voice, if you're hearing it, is riding a weak FM signal stretched too far over too little ground. There's no government anymore. The last emergency alert came 17 months ago. Choked, garbled broadcast warning of severe biospheric destabilization and urging citizens to remain calm. That was the day the wind shifted and the birds stopped singing. No one's heard from the capital since. What's left are fragments. Some towns cling to the bones of the old. World-fortified libraries, converted water towers, rooftop farms shielded in scrap metal. They trade in canned food, clean water, and stories. Hope has become a barter item, now valuable and always in short supply. Then there are the road. Trans-nomadic groups that move fast, burn what they can't carry, and believe in little more than survival by force. You learn to spot them by the scars they leave behind, burnt-out husks of trucks, stripped bones near fire pits, messages scrawled in ash. They don't listen to radios. They don't trust voices. The weather has turned feral. Rain comes rarely, and when it does, it's acidic enough to pit metal. Dust storms choke the horizon, swallowing entire towns in hours. The sun is a white-hot eye, glaring down through layers of smoke and heat haze. Forests, once lush and green, are now charcoal groves, stumps and cinders, reaching for a sky that no longer answers. Temperature swings are brutal. Nights can dip below freezing, even in July, while the days scorch skin in minutes. Crops fail, wells dry up, people vanish into the dust. I saw a city, once Seattle, what's left of it buried beneath a tide of sand. The Space Needles stuck out like a rusted spear from a dune. The old harbor was clogged with salt crust and dead fish, their silver scales dulled to gray. A group of children had etched drawings into the sand beside the ruins. I don't know what happened to them. The animals keep moving. That's the thing no one can explain. Wolves run shoulder to shoulder with elk. Predators ignore prey. Bears shamble alongside wild dogs. Something is driving them, pushing them across mountains, deserts, ruins. It's not instinct, it's fear. Pure, unrelenting fear. Sometimes I watch them from my rooftop. I've seen giraffes in Idaho. A lion once passed beneath my window, its coat mottled with ash. I didn't move. It didn't look at me. It was following something I couldn't see. People are starting to follow them. I've heard whispers bands of survivors trailing the migration, convinced the animals are fleeing toward something safer. A New Eden, a pocket of the world untouched by the rot. I can't say I believe it, but I understand why someone might, because staying still in this world is a kind of death. The institutions we trusted, science, government, religion fell one by one. The universities tried to stay open longer than most, publishing desperate climate models and migration maps, but those servers went offline months ago. The churches held vigils until the water ran out. Now they stand silent, stained glass shattered, altars looted for fuel, and the hospitals. Let's not talk about the hospitals. We're in the between time now. Between what was and what might be. Civilization isn't gone. Not completely, but it's feral, just like the weather, just like the sky. And something deeper is shifting under all of its something we can't measure or name. The air tastes wrong. The ground hums. We used to be the apex, the ones who tamed the wild, built towers, split atoms, crossed oceans. Now we're the ones, hiding in basements, watching the antelope pass us by. You're listening to the radio amid a panicked worldwide animal migration, and I don't know where they're going. But I can't help wondering if maybe they're right to run. My name is Marin Lowe. I used to be a sound engineer, just another background figure in a world that loved noise concerts, podcasts, commercials, talk shows, auto-tuned dreams. I could clean up audio like nobody's business. Back then, my life was just fader sliders, waveform monitors, and forgetting to eat lunch. Now, I speak into a dented microphone, powered by a salvaged solar panel and a prayer, sending my voice out into what's left of the airwaves. There's no real audience anymore, just static, and maybe someone listening on the other side of it. I broadcast once a day, same time, same cadence. I call it the hour of stillness. Not that there's much stillness left in this world, but that's the point, I guess. A ritual, a rhythm, something to keep time with when clocks mean nothing. I've survived because I'm stubborn and cautious, and because I happened to be underground when the first wave of storms blacked out the grid. I was in a recording booth, mixing a wildlife docu-series ironically titled When Earth Rebels. It wasn't even a serious production, just a streaming filler piece meant to sound dramatic. Wind noises layered over lion roars, synthesized thunder to make suburban audiences feel edgy. I remember the voiceover artist joking, "Bet we'll get sued by Mother Nature." 2 days later, we lost Seattle. The building shook so hard I thought the earth itself was roaring back. At us, that was the first sign, the sound. Not destruction, not fire, not floods, just sound. Low and wrong, like the sky cracking in half. When I crawled out from that basement, the world smelled like plastic and ash. Cars were frozen in intersections. Trees were split. Phones showed nothing but black screens and warning symbols. The animals had already started moving by then. I just didn't understand why yet. The first few weeks were chaos. I thought, like most people, that someone would fix it, that FEMA would roll in, that we'd rebuild, that this was a glitch. It wasn't. It took me nearly 2 months to stop waiting and start surviving, now. I live in a broadcast tower at the edge of Zone Grey. It was abandoned long before the collapse built in the 80s, used briefly by some regional station, then left to rust. The concrete stairwell groans in the wind, and the upper floor smells like mold and scorched copper. But it's tall, defensible and wired in ways I understand. I've rigged the old transmitter to run off. Solar scraps, some small wind coils, and a stationary bike I scavenged from a wrecked gym. If I want to talk to anyone, or pretend I have to ride that thing like my life depends on it. Sometimes it does. If the radio dies, so do I, a little. I ration everything. Food, energy, memory. Cans of beans and instant noodles form most. Of my diet once, I found a sealed tin of peaches in syrup and cried while eating it. I don't cry often. That day I did. Water comes from an old purification barrel system I patched together. It's not perfect sometimes, the filters clog with dust or dead insects, but it works. Mostly, I boil it, just in case. I sleep with my boots on. You learn that after the first time you have to run in the night. What keeps me going? That's a question I ask myself every sunrise. Some days, it's habit. Other days, it's the thought that someone, somewhere, might be out there tuning into my broadcast, hearing a human voice and realizing they're not alone. I try to imagine a child under blankets, holding a cracked old radio to their chest, or a couple huddled in a cellar, fingers intertwined as my voice breaks through the white noise. Hope's a strange thing. It's heavier than you'd think, but you carry it because you're scared of what you become if you let it go. I've lost people. Everyone has. I don't talk about them often, not even on air. But today, maybe I should. I had a sister, Lena. She was younger. Wild red hair, laughed with her whole chest, played violin like the world might end tomorrow. She was in Boston when the Eastern blackout hit. I never heard from her again. There was someone else, Juno. She was a climatologist. We met after the first collapse when I was scavenging through the library ruins near downtown. She was collecting scientific journals, still trying to make sense of what was happening. She told me that animal migration patterns were more than instinct, they were predictive, like something deep inside them had felt the warning before we did. We traveled together for 6 months, shared food, shared fears. We even set up a shortwave relay once, tried to send out messages to other scientists. Nothing came back. One day, we found a bird sanctuary that had been turned into a refugee site. The place was burning when we arrived. Smoke choked the trees. People screaming. We got separated in the chaos. I waited 3 days. She never came back. I still carry her notebook. It's filled with messy handwriting and underlined questions. Magnetic drift. Chemical trigger. Neural panic response. Are we next? Sometimes I flip it open just to see her thoughts again. I don't know if they're answers or just echoes. I try not to think too hard about what survival means now. For me, it's this tower, the routine, the voice I send into the airwaves. It's staying ahead of the scavenger packs. It's knowing how to strip wire, boil water, read the shape of clouds like omens. And it's the sound I listen, not just to the animals, but to the way the world sounds now. The wind, the silence has weight. Something is wrong beneath the wrongness. Every now and then, there's a frequency, a tone I can't explain. I pick it up on the low end of the dial. It's like a hum or a pulse, deep and steady, not mechanical, not natural. I've recorded it 6 times. The animals react to it, two jerking their heads, pausing in their stampedes. Sometimes they howl back. Sometimes I do too, just to see what happens. I'm not a hero. I don't have a plan to save anyone. I'm Just a stubborn voice with a microphone and a stubborn heart that keeps beating. But maybe that's enough. Maybe all we can do in the end is remind each other we're still here. This is Marin Lowe, still broadcasting, still listening. You start to notice the change in the wind first. Not just its speed or direction, but its scent metallic and sharp, like ozone before a lightning strike, only thicker, heavier. Some days it smells like blood. Other days, like wet stone and copper wiring baking under the sun. The temperature doesn't follow the rules anymore. In the morning, you wake to frost on the glass and ice in your boots. By noon, the tower is an oven. I've seen water boil in the open air, the last of it hissing out of tin pots and leaving behind pale rings of salt. Weather's stopped caring about patterns or forecasts. It's feral now, predatory. The climate crisis, the one we all joked about and studied and modeled for decades, didn't arrive like a breaking wave. It arrived like a parasite, invisible at first, eating through the guts of the world until things fell apart from the inside out. Now, the ecosystem is collapsing in real time, piece by piece, and we're running out of tape to hold it all together. 3 days ago, I lost my only reliable water barrel. Wind came out of the east in gusts that sounded like screaming, and it knocked the whole rig clean off the roof. 20 gallons, gone in seconds. I spent hours crawling through dust looking for the cracked pieces, but they were shredded against the concrete. That night, I didn't sleep. Dehydration has a way of turning the inside of your head to static. I've got 2 days worth of clean water left. After that, I'll have to move. I've been here for 8 months longer than anywhere else since the collapse, but survival doesn't leave room for sentiment. You stay too long in one place and it kills you, or someone else will. 2 nights ago, I saw smoke on the northern ridge, orange glow, thick columns, not lightning, not wildfire either. Controlled burns don't happen anymore, and nothing about this world is controlled. Probably scavengers, maybe raiders, burning through a fuel cache or signaling someone. Either way, it means danger. I've avoided most of the larger packs. Some groups are just desperate survivors, trying to hold on to what little they have. Others, well, let's just say some people adapted to this new world too easily, stripped down to hunger and brutality. They travel light, they eat what they find, and they don't hesitate. I don't blame them anymore. The world is emptying out its kindness like a leaking faucet. Last month, I met a survivor named Beck, former park ranger, carried a crossbow and an old dog named Saturn. We traded stories, shared jerky, camped on opposite rooftops with a rope line between us. He told me about a place down south of Crater Lake that hadn't dried up. Said it was shielded by canyon walls, hard to find, almost mythical. I wanted to believe him. He left before sunrise 2 weeks ago. Said he saw signs of sky change. His words, not mine. Said the clouds were wrong. I haven't seen him since. Sometimes I listen for his dog's bark, but the silence is loud here. Survival's getting harder every day, and not just because of the obvious. Sure, the supplies are thinning, fewer canned goods in the ruins, fewer solar panels that still hold a charge. But there's something else, something deeper. It's like the planet itself is trying to shrug us off. I've kept Juno's notes, and I've added to them. Over the last year, temperatures have spiked and collapsed in erratic cycles. We're not dealing with a simple warming trend anymore. The polar vortex fractured completely last winter. The jet stream doesn't know where to go. Ocean currents have slowed. The salinity readings, back when I still had access to sensors, showed massive freshwater influx from collapsed glacial systems. When I passed through the plains last year, I saw entire herds of cattle, bloated and unmoving, the skin peeling from them like scorched paper. No buzzards, no flies. Even the scavengers didn't touch the meat. Something poisoned the land. There may be airborne, maybe microbial. The soil had gone white and brittle. There's a pattern forming if you look hard enough. Wherever the animals are running from, that's where things die first. The land, the air, the people. It's like they sense tectonic shifts or pressure systems we can't measure anymore. That migration isn't random, it's a retreat, and we're lagging behind it. I've tried to follow their movements, charted sightings, noises, droppings, even disturbed earth. They move in waves, sometimes predictable, sometimes sudden. When they pass, the world goes still, and when they vanish, things get worse. More collapse, more fires, strange storms. It's like they're staying one step ahead of something coming behind them. You want a crisis. That's it. That's the storm breathing down our necks. Not a single event, but a cascade. A global systems crash. Droughts that never end. Floodplains turned to salt pans. Trees blooming out of season, then dying in clusters. Crop pollinators disappearing. Underground aquifers going toxic. 2. That the loss of social structure, no communication grid, no international aid, no working satellites with live data. We're blind. The institutions are gone. Whatever government still exists is bunkered far from reach. Local militias fill the power vacuum in most places. Territory is currency. Guns are law. There was a settlement about 20 miles west of here called, itself the Circle. They built a dome greenhouse with salvaged plastics and mirrored panels. Tried to restart agriculture. It worked, briefly. I visited once, ate a real tomato. They were planning to restart schooling for the kids. Last I heard, the animals bypassed their valley, and then the frost hittin' expected, brutal. Their solar rigs couldn't handle the swing. Their food spoiled. The dome collapsed under snow they didn't expect. No one answered their radio call after that. I try to keep the signal going, even when there's no reply. Maybe someone like Juno is still out there. Maybe they're collecting data to... Maybe we're all holding puzzle pieces. We'll never get the chance to fit together. But I still log the weather. I still mark the animal paths. I still listen to the hum, whatever it is, that strange frequency I catch just before the animals pass. It's low, almost seismic, not man-made, not natural, something else. One night, I tried broadcasting a reply on that same frequency, just to see. For a moment, the animals stopped, froze, looked east. Then they ran harder than I'd ever seen them run. I haven't tried again. Resources are dwindling. Fuel is re-rye. Haven't driven in over a year. Food gets harder to find. Clean water's the real currency now. I boil it, filter it, and still I get sick. My teeth ache. My skin itches. I don't know if it's bacteria or something worse. Still, I endure. That's all I know how to do. The real crisis isn't the storms, or the heat, or the poisoned rivers. It's the silence between us. The way we stopped trusting each other, stopped reaching out. That's what kills you in the end. Not the fire, not the drought, the loneliness, so I speak, every day. Even if my voice cracks, even if the only thing listening is the dust. You're listening to the radio amid a panicked worldwide animal migration, and wherever they're going, we better follow. Or we might be the only species left behind. The dust hasn't settled in days. It moves like a living thing now, curling in tendrils through broken windows and down my throat as I sleep. It coats everything food, water filters, my skin. Even my voice comes out rougher on the airwaves, like the tower itself is growing hoarse. This place is dying faster than I thought. I have 1 jar of clean water left. The barrel I refilled last week tasted like rust, and I'm not sure if it's the filter failing or something in the atmosphere leaching into the ground. I've rationed, boiled, even tried a coil I pulled from an old espresso machine to distill the worst of it, but the headaches keep coming. My gums bleed a little when I brush. That's not a good sign. Food's thinning out too. I found a bag of old cornmeal in a wrecked supply trailer 2 days ago. It was infested, full of larvae. I picked through it anyway, cooked what I could salvage. Hunger erases most of your standards. Ask ChatGPT. Yesterday, I saw the first person I've seen in weeks. They were standing just beyond the tree line, if you can still call it a tree line. The pines are skeletal now, burned and stunted, but a few black trunks still jut out from the ash. The figure wore a long, dark coat, gas mask. They didn't move, didn't wave, just watched. I stepped away from the tower window and didn't go back for hours. I didn't broadcast that night. Could have been a scavenger. Could have been worse. Could have been one of the wreckburn the ones who wear old riot armor and carve tally marks into their skin for each supply raid. I've only encountered them once, months ago, near the riverbed. They travel in threes, always threes. They don't speak, they just take. That's why I've packed a bag, 2 canteens, my backup radio Juno's notebook, a strip of aluminum, foil to reflect sunlight, and what's left of my solar charge cells. I'm not running yet, but I'm not staying still either. And then there's the humming. It's getting stronger. The low tone that echoes through the static kit used to come once a week, maybe every 10 days. Now it pulses every night. It's louder, more rhythmic. I've tried mapping it, tried running it through old audio filters. The waveform isn't random. It repeats like a pattern, like it's calling something, and the animals are responding. I watched a column of stags march down the highway 3 nights ago, 12 of them, moving in perfect silence, hooves crunching glass. They passed the tower without hesitation. Their eyes were wide, glazed, like something else was looking through them. Even the rats are leaving now. That's what scares me most. Rats don't leave unless the ship is sinking, and still, people whisper about hope. I caught a faint signal yesterday, 5 seconds of scrambled audio. A woman's voice, distorted but clear enough to make out one word, verdant. I froze, listened again, played it back 20 times. Verdant. It's a name I've heard before. A myth, really. Survivors talk about it like a ghost story. A place, hidden in the high mountain valleys where the rain still falls and crops still grow. Some say it's an old military biodome, long forgotten, now thriving with heirloom seeds and clean hydro systems. Others say it's just a lie, a rumor spread by desperate people to keep others moving. But this voice, this signal, it wasn't. Imagination. So now I have a choice. Stay here, rot with the tower, Die slow and silent beneath the dust door. Move, risk it all. Chase a name broadcast on a broken frequency. Verdant, it loops in my brain like a melody I can't shake. But I've trusted mirages before, and they've cost me. I remember a time last year when I followed rumors of a survivor commune in what used to be northern Utah. Hiked for 4 days, 8 cactus spines, found a valley full of bones and rusted irrigation pipes. Whoever lived there had burned everything to avoid letting it fall into the wrong hands. Or maybe they just gave up. There's a part of me, maybe the oldest part, that says this is the same. Another ghost on the airwaves, another desperate illusion. But then again, the animals, they're not running away anymore. Not exactly. They're converging. I've seen them gathering near a ridgeline to the west eagles nesting again. Coyotes howling not in fear, but in rhythm, a pattern, like they know where they're going, like they're being called, Juno once wrote in her notebook. Migration isn't just about survival, it's about return. Patterns buried deep in muscle memory. What if they're going home? It sounded like poetic nonsense at the time. Now I'm not so sure. Last night I packed my gear, tied my boots, stood at the edge of the rooftop for an hour, staring out into the gray. I told myself I'd wait for one more sign, one more confirmation that this path is real. And then the lights came, faint at first flickers across the ridge. I thought it was lightning, but the sky was clear, no clouds. Then I realized it was movement, pulses like a slow, silent beacon, not firelight, not solar reflection, something else. I don't know if it's human, but I know it's not the tower, not the static, not the loneliness. So here's what I'm doing. I'm leaving tomorrow, heading west toward the light, toward Verdant, or whatever lies beyond it. I'll take the secondary radio rig, leave the main signal on Lupa recorded message in case anyone stumbles across this place. It'll say, "This is Marin Low." If you're hearing this, I'm following the migration west of Zone Gray. Look for the lights, listen for the hum, keep moving, because maybe that's the only truth left in this world. Keep moving. I don't know if I'll find sanctuary, or death, or something in between. I don't know who sent the message, or why the animals are gathering, but I've survived long enough to learn that when every instinct screams run, sometimes the only way to live is to follow it. Hope, it turns out, is harder than survival. You can survive on fear, on habit, on hunger, but hope requires something else, a kind of madness, a willingness to risk what little you have for something you've never seen. Maybe that's why I'm afraid, not because I might die chasing it, but because a part of me believes it's real. And if that part is wrong, if Verdant is just another lie, then I won't just lose my body out there in the wasteland. I'll lose the last piece of myself I've been trying to protect. The part that still believes the world could heal. This is Marin Low. I'll broadcast again when I can, or I won't. Either way, I'll be out there following the silence, following the light, following the animals. I reached the ridge at dusk. My breath burned in my chest, the air dry as bone, laced with the bitter tang of copper dust. I hadn't spoken aloud in hours, not even to myself. The handheld radio dangled limp at my side, the battery nearly dead. I'd followed the animals for 4 days, 4 days of blistered feet, swollen knees, and heat that felt like punishment. But they never stopped moving, and I never stopped following. The The ridge wasn't marked on any of the maps. I scavenged those old gas station foldouts from before the world fell apart. Maybe the geography had changed. Maybe the land shifted under the weight of what we'd done to it. But there it was, a high, craggy bluff with jagged black rock curling like teeth toward the sky. The air was colder up here, dense with silence. Below it, in the canyon, I saw them, hundreds of animals, deer, coyotes, birds, in tight murmuration, spirals gathered in quiet, unnatural stillness. It wasn't chaos, it was reverent. They formed, circles around something glowing faintly from beneath the cracked earth. It pulsed, not light, not flame. The hum, I dropped to one knee behind a boulder, chest pounding. The tone I'd been hearing on the low bands of my receiver was coming from that place. Not a sound, not really. A vibration, subsonic, primal. It was in the soil, in the marrow. It made the inside of my ribs ache like the memory of an old wound. For a moment, I forgot I was starving, forgot the gash on my shin where barbed wire had torn through my jeans, forgot even the voice recorder in my pack, still running out of habit. Then came the voice, not from the canyon, from behind me. You followed it too. I turned fast, fumbling for the rusted hatchet at my hip, but the figure didn't move, just stood at the edge of the ridge, backlit by the fading sun, hands raised slightly in peace. I heard your broadcast, she said, your Marin Low. She was younger than I expected, late 20s, maybe, wrapped in patchwork gear, and a scarf that looked like it had once been part of a wind turbine's insulation. She had a pack slung across one shoulder and a shortwave radio tied with paracord at her waist. Name's Faye, she added, stepping closer, slow. I've been tracking this place for months. Thought I was the only one. I lowered the hatchet. You're not. We stood in silence together, watching the movement below. Faye pulled a cracked pair of binoculars from her bag, handed them to me. I looked through. The light was real, pale green. It bled out from a jagged fault line in the rock, illuminating pools of algae that shimmered with life-actual life knot. Just the rot-colored lichen that clung to concrete ruins. It was water, underground, flowing, glowing, somehow clean. They call it verdant, Faye said. The place, the animals led us here. It's not just rumor. She shook her head. It's real, but it's not a sanctuary. Not yet. There's no dome, no city under the rocks. Just this, fissure, a crack in the earth where something ancient survived. A part of me wanted to laugh. After all this, I'd found it tanned. It wasn't paradise. It was just a fracture, a place where the world hadn't completely given up. But before I could speak again, everything changed. The sound shifted. The low hum rose into a screech that split the air like a knife. The animals scattered, some fleeing, others collapsing. Birds dropped from the sky mid-flight. The ground shook us once, like a massive heartbeat, and then came the smell, sulfur, ozone, and something burned deep, like the earth itself was cracking open. Faye screamed down. We dove behind the rocks as a blast of wind swept across. The ridge, hot and metallic, my ears rang. The hum grew louder, then stopped suddenly. Terrifyingly, and the silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. I couldn't breathe. When I opened my eyes, the canyon glowed brighter. The crack had widened. Something below was moving, Faye whispered. We need to go now. But I couldn't. This was it. This was the source, the center of everything. I fumbled with my pack, tore out the voice recorder, and hit play. This is Marin Low. I've found it. Verdant, the fracture, the hummets, all real. The animals knew. They always knew. They always knew. This isn't sanctuary. It's warning. Something is coming, or waking. Faye grabbed my arm. We can't stay. If this event reaches the surface, I looked back once more. The water glowed brighter now, but it wasn't just algae. I saw machines, ancient machines, half submerged, blinking faintly. Antennae, satellite arrays, half melted, wires pulsing with green light. This wasn't natural, it was man-made. What is it? I whispered. Faye was pale. An arc, or maybe a reactor, or a weapon. We buried it, forgot it, and now the light flared. Pain spiked behind my eyes. I screamed. The air distorted, the horizon bending inward, like heat rising from asphalt. Time slowed. Every sound blurred together. My heartbeat, the wind, the crackling of distant fire. And then I heard Juno's voice, clear in my head. They're not migrating to escape. They're migrating to survive the reset. That word froze me. Reset. Was that what this was? A fail? A system reboot designed by someone before all this? Was this what verdant really meant? The earth groaned. Something beneath us shifted with a mechanical sigh, like a turbine rousing from slumber. Faye yanked me to my feet. We have to shut it down. There's no time. We have to try. She was right. Or maybe we were both wrong. But we had one shot. We ran down the ridge. The heat was unbearable. My skin blistered within minutes, eyes watering from the glare. We scrambled over dead earth and cracked bones, through tangles of barbed wire and broken animal paths. The closer we got to the fracture, the more distorted the air became, like stepping into a pressure chamber. There, half buried in rock, was a control panel, rusted, ancient, and still blinking. Faye reached for the levers. I slid the voice recorder next to it, hitting record again. If anyone finds this, verdant isn't what you think. It's not a sanctuary. It's the source, a power meant to restart the biosphere or erase it. The screen flashed once. Override? Why? Faye hovered her hand over the yes. Do we trust it? She asked. I looked at the animals around us, trembling, silent, waiting, and I thought about hope. The kind that kills you if it's false. The kind that saves you if it's not. Don't know, I whispered. But I'd rather die choosing something than survive doing nothing. She pressed yes. The light turned white dot, and then everything stopped. End of climax, section next, section 9. Falling, action, aftermath, and reflection. Let me know when you're ready to continue. When I opened my eyes, the world was quiet. Not the terrifying quiet from before the pressure cooker's silence. Heavy with dread, but a different kind. A stillness that felt earned. Like a long-held breath had finally been released. Faye lay a few feet away, curled in the dust, coughing. I pushed myself upright, wincing as pain lanced through my shoulder. Something had torn muscle, maybe ligament, but I was alive. We both were. The sky above us had changed. Gone was the perpetual, blistering red. In its place, a sickly, pale yellow, with cracks of deep gray, shifting lazily like old bruises fading from skin. Clouds real, clouds floated on the horizon. Thin, high-altitude wisps, but clouds nonetheless. I hadn't seen them in over a year. The hum was gone. No vibrations, no subsonic pulsing underfoot, just wind. Honest, untainted wind. I blinked and took it all in. The fissure at the canyon's base had closed. Not completely, but the blinding white light had dimmed. The crack pulsed faintly, a soft green glow visible through the fractures in the earth. The machines were still there, but silent, sleeping. We did something. I don't know what. Maybe we postponed the end. Maybe we activated some dormant biomechanism designed by people smarter and more desperate than we ever were. Maybe we just nudged the wheel of fate slightly to the left. But it changed things. The animals were still here, not fleeing anymore. They lingered at the edges, sniffing the air, ears twitching. A fox approached me emaciated, fur patchy, but eyes alert. It stared for a long time before turning and trotting off, not with panic, but purpose. Something told me it wasn't running, it was returning. Faye woke. Slowly, she looked at me and smiled through cracked lips. We didn't die. Not yet, I said, my voice hoarse but steady. We didn't talk for a long while, just sat there, letting the moment settle. Later, when the sun rose softer, less brutal than before, we made our way back up the ridge. I retrieved the recorder, surprisingly intact, hit play. The last few minutes were garbled, static-filled, but the message was still there. It's the source, a power meant to restart the biosphere, or erase it. It hadn't erased us, but it had to mean something. We camped that night in a collapsed ranger station on the slope, broken walls, a water pump that groaned back to life after 20 cranks. The water that came out was cold, clean. I nearly wept drinking it. I took a long look at the world as darkness fell. It was scarred, still, broken in ways that wouldn't heal overnight. Trees remained bare. The soil was dust dry and lifeless in patches, but the wind had shifted direction. It smelled different, less like ash, more like moss. I wonder sometimes if that's how recovery starts, not with a miracle, but a slight change in the scent of air. We stayed near the canyon for a few more days, gathering what we could, samples from the stream, audio logs, functioning batteries from the old transmitter array. The longer we stayed, the more we noticed the subtle shifts. Birdsong returned quiet and infrequent, but real. Lichen began to spread on the rocks like it remembered how to live again. And the animals, they began to leave, not in panic, not in disarray. They moved like a tide in reverse, trickling outward from the fracture, like they'd received the signal they were waiting for. Faye called it a reset pulse. She thinks the machine, whatever it is, sent out something biological, maybe a burst of bioengineered spores, or a release of atmospheric rebalancers, something meant to reseed the system. She said it like a scientist. I just nodded. I don't need to understand the how. I only care that it happened. But recovery isn't revival. Not yet. The nights are still cold. The air is still thin. And most of the world, I imagine, hasn't changed. Not yet. Verdantif, that's still the name, for it is just one place, one crack in the fabric of a dying world. But it's a start, Faye. And I made a decision. We packed what we could. We fixed the solar panel and recharged the shortwave. Then we started climbing higher into the ridge toward the plateau where the signal might reach farther. If Verdant was real, then people needed to know. Survivors needed to hear us. It took 4 days of hiking, bruises, blistered hands, and one near fatal fall. But we made it. Now we're broadcasting again. Not just static, not just warnings, not just please news, This is Marin Low, broadcasting from the western ridge above Verdun. We found it. It's real. A fracture in the earth, a hum, and now something's changed. The animals knew. They led us here. They're leaving now, moving with intent. The sky is shifting. The wind is softer. Something inside the planet remembered how to heal. If you're out there, don't give up. This might be the beginning of something. I pause each time before I add the final line. It feels like too much, too dangerous, but I say it anyway. You're not alone. Sometimes silence answers, but other times I hear something, a click, a pause, a faint hum that might be a voice or a breath caught in the wires, and that's enough. I'm not the same person who sat in a rusted radio tower watching the world collapse. Back then, I thought survival meant staying alive long enough to see the end. Now I think it means believing the end might not come, or that if it does, it won't be ours. I still carry Juno's notebook. It's worn thin now, pages warped from sweat and damp, but it's still legible. I've added to it drawings of the ridge, diagrams of the light pattern, maps of the animal, trails. It's not science, not really, but it's memory. And memory is its own kind of survival. Faye thinks we should go back east someday. Find more survivors. Bring them here. Help them rebuild. I'm not ready, not yet, but someday. For now, we keep watch. We track the weather. We record the wind. We wait for the world to bloom again, even in cracks. And each night, voice in the dark, a story in the static, a message wrapped in dust and hope. You're listening to the radio amid a panicked worldwide animal migration. But the panic is fading, and maybe, just maybe, something else is beginning. If you are, I hope you're warm, dry, fed. I hope the wind outside your door doesn't carry sand, or smoke, or the sound of something breaking that should have never been touched. I hope the walls around you are strong, and that someone, anyone, is sitting near enough to hear your voice when you speak. Because survival is a quiet thing now. It doesn't scream. It doesn't announce itself. It whispers. It's the act of waking up and choosing not to quit. It's splitting your last ration bar with someone who might rob you tomorrow. It's tuning in to static for hours, just to hear something besides your own breathing. And sometimes it's just being the one who speaks into the silence. That's me. That's what I've become. The radio's barely holding on. One of the tuning coils snapped last week, and the only replacement I had was made for a much older shortwave set. It shouldn't work, but it does. Or maybe that's just how things are now. Nothing works the way it used to. But somehow, we're still here. I don't know what the machines in Verdant did, if they fixed anything or just delayed the inevitable. But I do know this. Something changed. The air feels lighter. The birds return earlier each morning. Rain came yesterday, real rain. Not acid sleet. It only lasted 5 minutes, but it soaked the ridge and left behind a scent I hadn't smelled in years. Petric, or the smell of living earth. Faye stood in it, arms out, laughing like a child. I just watched her, letting my fingers trace the notebook in my coat pocket. Juno would have loved that moment. I still talk to her sometimes. When it gets too quiet, I imagine she's on the other end of the signal, that her hands are still scribbling. Notes in some other outpost, that she's still watching the skies. It's not likely, but in a world that cracked open and kept spinning, who am I to doubt possibility? People ask me when they respond to the broadcast. Yes, people are responding now. Tiny bursts of life through long-dead channels. They ask me, what should we do now? They want an answer, a plan, a map back to what we lost. But I don't have that. I only have this. Keep going. Not because things will get better, not because the world will heal completely, but because maybe it'll heal enough to let the next generation plant something, enough to let rivers flow again, even if crooked, enough to let one child grow up not knowing the taste of ash in their mouth. And that's worth walking toward. You won't find a finish line out here. No ending, no point where the dust parts and a perfect city rises from the rubble. That's not how it works. Survival doesn't reward you with comfort. It rewards you with continuance. One more sunrise, one more day without a wound, one more voice on the radio. We're scattered now, our species, our story, finding soil again, and soil is where it starts. If you're listening, maybe you're scared, maybe you're alone, maybe you've lost everything, and you're wondering what the point of any of this still is. Here's what I can tell you. You're still breathing, and that breath, that's resistance. The world tried to silence us, our greed, our machines, our wars. They pushed the planet too far. The earth flinched, and in that flinch, we lost nearly everything, but not everything. We're still here, and as long as we're here, the story's not over. So I'll keep broadcasting each night when the stars come out. Yes, the stars. They're back now too, faint but real. I'll be at the mic. I'll tell what I've seen. I'll relay the weather, the movements of animals, the frequencies of survivor colonies. I'll catalog this strange new chapter we've wandered into, because someone has to, because you might be listening, because maybe this voice in the dark is the thread you needed to hold on to just a little longer. So let me be that thread. This is Marin Lowe, broadcasting from the western ridge above. Verdant, the world isn't fixed, not by a long shot, but something has shifted, and sometimes that's enough. So stay warm, stay kind, stay human, and if you're able, keep moving. I'll meet you on the other side. Over and out.